Welcome to the S.J. Child Show, where a little bit of knowledge can turn fear into understanding. Enjoy the show. Hi, and thank you for joining the SG Child Show today. I'm really looking forward to my conversation today with Reyna. It will be, I know, just very informative and exciting. I'm thrilled, I'm gonna say that, right? Pun, to talk to her and learn about her passions and what she loves and how we can support her most of all. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for
Please,
having me.
yeah, introduce yourself and let us know kind of a little bit about you.
Sure. My name is Reyna Gentin, and I live in a suburb of New York City. And I spent many years practicing law, and I still do so on a volunteer basis, but I stopped practicing on a full-time paid basis about almost 10 years ago. And when I stopped doing that, I started doing some writing. So I actually kind of fell into it. A friend of mine was taking a class at a local university, and she invited me to come along with her, and I did. And it really changed everything. I've written now 3 novels, and then also just a lot of other essays and short stories and all sorts of stuff that I've been able to have published. And it's been great. It's been a whole different outlook on what to do with my time and how to reach people and how to talk to people. And it's really been great.
That's amazing. And I can really resonate with that change, that really vast and very deep change that you made from I was a paralegal for years. And I,
Okay.
at the moment, just thought, I need to do something different. And I went into massage therapy.
Wow.
Like
That's great.
you just completely change the grid 100%. And so I completely understand you have to like that new mindset and you like this new outlook and new perspectives and you take so much with you that you've learned. I absolutely love attorneys, by the way. I'm probably one of the, few people in the world. No,
Yeah,
I think that there's
possibly.
just so much value that you can offer to the community. And yeah, so thank you for your service and doing that way and in your legal career. And it's so exciting when you then find a passion, especially in your later years after you've established a career. Tell us what that transition was like for you. Did it have like kind of a darker, lower places, or was it just like hit the ground running?
No, I would definitely say it was a transition. I mean, it came at the same time as my kids were kind of transitioning a little bit. I mean, 10 years ago, my kids were 13 and 16. So that's a very different kind of parenting than when your kids are small and need help with everything. And, but they do still need help and they're around, but it was, a different kind of time perspective that I had because of them. And it's a very different way to spend your day. Obviously, it's much more solitary. You have to work at figuring out how to make a community for yourself because you're not going to an office. And I know a lot of people listening now are, saying, well, we don't go to offices anymore. Everybody's working remotely, but it wasn't like that when I was practicing. I
Yeah.
went to the office and I had colleagues and I had people to talk to and I went to court. And, this was all of a sudden, me trying to figure out like who could I have read something that I wrote and give me an honest opinion, or who can I talk to about the process of writing or what it's like to be a writer or getting something published. It's just it was a whole new world that I didn't know anything about. And it definitely, it had its ups and downs for figuring things out and figuring out how to have friends that were doing the same kinds of things. And so I definitely don't think it was like a straight shot, like, oh, now I'm a writer. It doesn't really work that way, but but it was good. I mean, I think it was a tremendous learning curve, and but I think it was good. I went in with a good attitude, and I think, so far things have worked out. So
I love that. Yeah, I love that you said, building that sense of community because I can completely agree with that. And 10 years ago, they didn't have the Facebook author groups and writing
right.
all of the, chat GPT writing tools, whatever, you want to use, but also to have the availability to find that within like your local community, even harder. It's easier to find things online and people are so spread out, but there's so much you can find, so it makes it a little bit easier, it seems. What was that like? Did you find book clubs or what did you find in your local community for resources?
So first of all, as I mentioned, I did start by taking classes at a local university, and that was incredibly powerful. And also, I just met so many people
Mhm.
that way. And the school that's near me is called Sarah Lawrence College, and it's got a well-known writing program. But what's so wonderful about it is it has well-known programming for people that are actually enrolled there, but it also has a separate standalone program and building and faculty for people who are adults who are just coming back to do
Yeah.
something that they find interesting, that are not, not looking for credit, and I'm not going to get a degree. I just wanted to be there and to learn
Yeah.
from people and to meet people. So I met a lot of people that way. And then through that, I ended up getting involved in a writing workshop. So I do that every 2 weeks, and I meet with those folks, and that's kind of who reads my first drafts of things, and we workshop each other's
Oh, I love that.
materials. And I would say, and definitely even things that I wouldn't have thought of, like when my first book came out, I went and I met with the people that own the local bookstore, and just to introduce myself and to say, I would love to be a part of this, and I would love to, kind of have you help me and me help you. And it was really, it's been great. And so, I see them all the time at different launches for other writers that I know. They'll be there selling their books, and I've known them now for 10 years. And so all different things, both, locally, and there is a lot of stuff online also
Yeah.
now. Everybody has to take advantage of that because that's where a lot of stuff is happening. But it is nice to have like real people that I see in real time also. So
Yeah, yeah, that's certainly true. And there's so much passion that comes in finding those groups of people and ways to, collaborate with them. Where did you and when did you know kind of what genre of writing you were going to do? It sounds like in your career you went kind of down the same path. Was it from that you wanted to write from that, or was that way before that you even had a passion for that genre?
um so what ended up happening to me is that this class that I took with my friend was a memoir class, and I knew I wasn't going to write a memoir. Like, I didn't really have that kind of life. And I think of memoir as like, I don't know, whoever you think of as your favorite memoirist, but those are like big lives that are out there that you see them on the news and you want to know what kind of life did they have and this, that. And but the great part about memoir writing when you take a class is that it's really very like distinct. Like, it's writing about different moments. How do I make this moment that I want to write about, whether it's a relationship with my mother or a relationship with your spouse or whatever it is, how do I make that relatable to other people so that when they read it, they say, that's not what it was like with my mother, but I see it. I see where she's coming from, and I understand how that could be. And it reminds me of something with my mother, and so I did a lot of that writing at first, which was mostly kind of personal essay writing. And then when I kind of had done that for like a year, I sort of felt like I had enough characters, even though they were based on, they were real people, but could I write a novel with these inspiration of these characters in it? So that's what I did. And so my first novel was, was very much set from true life. It was set in the office that I worked in. It was about a case that I had handled. And the characters, there was a mother character that was similar to my mother, and there were definitely a lot of similarities into what I was doing. But I think that's really very common amongst, debut authors, like it's just so much easier to write about things that you can picture the story in your head because
Yeah.
you lived it. um, so, that was kind of where I wound up. And I guess it turned out to be kind of women's fiction just because that was kind of the protagonists were turning out to be women who, and following their life story. So I did write two novels like that, and then I wrote the middle grade novel, which is about a girl with dyslexia. And then, yeah, and then now I'm working on another novel, but it is sort of, I guess, still women's fiction. So there's not really a great, like, I knew I wasn't like a romance writer or a thriller writer. So knock off a lot of genres, it's kind of what you're left with. But
Yeah, interesting. Well, and I really like that you said that because about kind of relating it, making it relatable and things like that. I have seven self-published children's books,
oh wow,
and the same thing. It's all in relatability. It's all my children's stories or stories that I can understand to tell, because
Mark.
that's where the authenticity comes from, is having those living experience to say, I live, through middle school anxiety, or I,
Right.
can remember the be feeling different when I was in this age group or whatever because of my neurological or physical differences for children to understand. So yeah, I think that it is so important that there's those pieces of realness in the stories. And even when you're writing fiction, it's still, you draw from your own experiences still in those things. So I love that. What are you going to be working on in the future? And you don't have to give like all of the, don't all of the great details, but what are some kind of maybe even your bucket list, and what are some other things you're looking forward to?
Um, well, the big thing I'm looking forward to, and I haven't really started it yet, I've really honestly written like two paragraphs, is I would love to write something that's short stories, but they're linked together by something, but
Oh, I
they
like
each
that.
stand on their own. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm working on, and I've written two paragraphs, but I'm working on something about a woman who works like the night shift in a 24-hour diner, and then kind of linking the stories up through the diner, like
That's
different people that
cool.
work in the diner or different things that happen in the parking lot of the diner, or other people's, people that come into the diner. And I think it would give me a lot of freedom to kind of write stories from different perspectives,
Yeah.
and yeah, and that would kind of be exciting. I think it's very hard to do because the stories really have to stand on their own. It can't be that they're just, they have to, like, you'd have to be able to read one and say, oh, good story, and not worry about that it was also linked to some other story.
Yeah.
But so it's a tricky thing to pull off, but I'm excited to try. So
Definitely. Wow. I just love that you're expanding on those ideas and things. What are some general, maybe tips that you can give the audience on, if they are passionate about wanting to change their careers or even as a hobby to write a book? Where's a good place to start?
so I would say a class is really a great place to start. And if you can do it live, I think that's all the better. But even if you can't, I mean, so many places offer Zoom classes now, and they're really well done and they're well organized, and you still get feedback from the teacher, and you still, it's very streamlined now. Not, maybe it wasn't so well organized 10, 15 years ago, but now people understand that, this is how people need to get access. And so I would definitely try to start with something like that. It's really, really hard to do on your own. And it's very hard. Even like I have a friend, she's actually my best friend, my college roommate, and she's honestly, she's got more talent in her little finger than I have in my whole body, but she is so reluctant to get feedback on anything that she just never gets anywhere because she writes and writes, and writes. And
Yeah.
now I can't tell her to watch this, but she writes a lot, and she doesn't ever subject herself to people telling her, this is not working. This is too much description, or this is not getting to the point, or whatever it is that you can't see it when you do it yourself. And you really do need someone else to tell you. And it's, you have to kind of take the plunge if you want to try to start. It's just really, and a lot of communities have, like I teach one myself here, like an adult ed writing workshop. And, it's very laid back. I never have a lot of students. I have like between 4 and 8 students, but it's super fun. And I give them prompts and they learn to write, their stories down, and they learn to workshop. They learn to say, I'm going to read this out loud, and it's going to be okay when someone tells me, I don't understand this part, or you need to expand on this, and I think, yeah, any of those kind of things are really great ways to get started.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, you literally took the words out of my mouth, like completely. I was going to say next, like, what about feedback? What about how do you set that mindset that you have to take constructive criticism? And how do you best set yourself up for that? Do you go to someone that that you feel more comfortable with? Is that like a good gateway kind of to cross over?
Right.
Or do you straight plunge into like public opinion and like how does that fare?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can do it a lot of different ways,
Yeah.
And when you do get a group that starts to understand how you write and how you think, that's really helpful, because then they can zone right in on what you've done that is even just not in accord with your style. They can say to you, like, this doesn't sound like you. And that's a big help, because sometimes you can't see it. And I'm not saying it's fun. It's not fun. Like when I just finished a draft of a new novel, and my writing group had read it and they liked it, but they read it, in pieces over 3.5 years that it took me to write it. And I felt like I needed some people to read it, like from start to finish, that could just look at it. And I couldn't ask any of my friends because I knew I would not take it well. Like, I don't like to be criticized. I really don't. And I just felt like it was going to be bad for me to have a friend tell me, like, this is not working. So there's actually like companies even that do that. Like I paid for this company and they had 3 readers read it, and it was painful to hear from them too, but at least I didn't know them. So it's like, you know what? Like, I'm going to take what I can from what you've said, and then I'm just going to ignore the rest because it's too upsetting. But it's hard. It's hard to figure out what your best way is to get feedback. It really is.
Yeah, no, I love that we made that point, because it is like a risk-taking type of industry that you really have to know the value of what you're bringing, your product and your words and what you have to share with the world. But there was a wonderful reading coach that I had on once, and he just said something that has always stuck with me and I love to share, is that if you have written something, you owe it to the world to share it, because it's the only perspective that the world will ever see. They'll never get a different perspective. If you don't share that one, that'll always just be hidden away and it'll never be something shared. So I kind of love that. And as scary as it is sometimes, especially when you're putting something out that involves something personal to you. I think wrote several of the children's books, but it was the one that was most specifically about my autistic son that I was afraid and almost pained to, like, please, I don't want, like, I want to put this out because I want to share it, but nobody say anything. Okay.
Right.
Kind of a thing
Right.
about it. Like, and this crazy thing is that one actually is the only one that got a poor review on Amazon. And I'll tell you what, broke my heart. It hurt my feelings. And at the same time, it's now been 7 years, and I can really look at it prospectively and say, it wasn't this person's journey. They couldn't relate to it. They didn't find they understood this process, and that's okay. Now that's
Right.
okay. Like, it took some time though. And I think
Yes,
that's
it
an
takes time.
important thing, is the reviews that, because boy, the public is open to leaving them.
Right. 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 And it can be harsh. It can be.
Yeah, definitely. But like you said, you know what to ignore and to walk away from, or what maybe somebody says that you can say, yeah, maybe 10 years later here, maybe I'll revise it and make it a little bit more, or make preface at the beginning, this is my personal journey. If it doesn't resonate with you, then, um, I hope that you can share your journey with
Right.
and let us know what that's like.
Right.
So yeah, how do you encourage maybe your students to reply to feedback and things like that?
The classes I've been teaching, I, I think the students, they're older people. And I think that they feel, um, they're shy about making comments about each other's material, not so much because they don't want to hurt feelings, but I think that they feel that they're not qualified from like a writing craft perspective to say anything. And in a way, they're sort of, they're not totally wrong. But I mostly encourage them to comment on the content, comment on the emotions, comment on where the energy is. Where did you feel that you were excited to hear the next part of the story? Don't worry about making comments about the structure or about, the particular language used if that's not something you feel qualified to talk about. But mostly I encourage them, you know, as I say, to comment on the energy. Where did you feel like you sat up in your chair and said, oh, I'm hearing something there that interests me and that I want to know more about. And it's a memoir writing workshop, so they are taking stories from their own lives, and because they're sort of around the same age and they're kind of living in the same sort of community, they have a lot of things in common, and
Yeah.
they tell stories from their childhood, and a lot of it will resonate with other people in the class because their parents were also whatever,
Yeah.
depression era babies or whatever it is. They are able to relate, quite a bit to each other. So that's
Yeah.
where you get when you have a homogeneous kind of class like that.
I love
It's a
that.
little easier in some ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And it must be also unique to find ones that maybe are more diverse and have kind of different ideas and perspectives, because I think that even in this medium of podcasting, to be able to do, this is maybe my 270th interview
Wow.
or something, to have that understanding that even how much I've learned from you today, and what a new way it can enter your life at a time where, okay, yeah, I've known attorneys, yeah, I've known authors, but it's so unique to hear your story and how it happened for you. And I love the memoir part of it, actually, because it really kind of set the tone for the way you wrote and the way you connected to the writing and to the words.
Mhm.
Um, let's talk about the dyslexia book. That's interesting to me because my show is a lot about neurodiversity,
Right.
and my husband and daughter are both dyslexic. Is
Oh,
that
wow.
something you relate with, or something you had to learn about to write about?
No, I had to learn about it. I didn't, I don't have dyslexia, and none of my kids don't have it. I had, cousins and whatever. Everybody knows somebody who has dyslexia. Um, but it kind of opened up, a whole new thing for me to learn, which I really appreciated. I didn't,
Yeah.
the books that I had written before were much more centered on criminal law or things that I knew about. And this was something I really didn't know about. And it was just interesting to see how you research it and how much do you have to know? Like I feel like I learned enough, and many people with dyslexia have read the book and told me that I definitely, hit the points in certain scenes and whatever. But other people said to me, like, why didn't you write more specifically about how they worked with the protagonist after they discovered that she had dyslexia? And I said, you know what? I knew I wasn't going to get that right. Like, I'm not an expert. I wasn't going to get the treatment right. I said more generic things like, allowing more time to take the tests, things like that. And and I mentioned working one-on-one with, a teacher or somebody that would know how to help, but I didn't want to try to go places that I knew I was going to get wrong.
Mm.
And so it was good for me, I think, to learn something about it and to then try to apply it. And
Yeah.
it's fiction. It's not, I wasn't trying to write a textbook on dyslexia.
Yeah.
So
No, I completely get it. No, one of my children's books is also, but they're elementary, aged, is also about dyslexia. And
oh
I
well.
also am not dyslexic. And so I think, well, and I found out later in life through a brain scan, it said that I have some dyslexia, but I didn't struggle with that. That wasn't the
Right.
struggle I had. Um,
Right.
but now looking back, I mean, I had to learn from what my husband was telling me and what I saw was happening with my daughter. And
Right.
now I can go back and there are a few changes I would definitely make and revisions now that I've learned so much more. And I can I think that's what I'm gonna have to do to most of most of the book.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the case. Maybe with that style or kind of more like educational or informative books, you might have to go back and revise with 5 or 10 years when language or situations change. And that's
Right.
okay too.
Right.
I think that that's showing, that growth in that author's ability to kind of change with the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
No,
just to
that's
evolve, as you say, like
exactly.
if your knowledge evolves and you feel like it would have an impact on the story, why not? I mean, what's
Yeah. Exactly. Well, I'm really excited to see what things are coming up for you. Now, what about do you attend like award ceremony? Have you gotten awards and things like that? What does that look like? Have you ever done those things?
No, I actually got an award for the book about my book about the dyslexia.
Oh,
I
wonderful.
got a Moonbeam Children's Book Award, which
I
was very
love
exciting for
that.
me. It's
Yes.
hardly, I don't really enter. I mean, I don't know, people who aren't writers don't understand that like you actually have to enter for all these
Yes.
awards and you
Yes.
pay a lot of money. It's not like a free thing that somebody,
No,
I mean,
it's
it's not like the
strangest
Nobel
thing.
Prize. Somebody gives you the Nobel Prize.
True.
So I didn't really like go out on a limb and do that with my other
Yeah,
books, but this seemed like worth doing, and I was
absolutely.
excited. I was excited that they recognized the book because I feel like it's a really, to me, it has a very important message about, inclusivity and that
Yeah.
understanding that like everybody has something, like so my kids don't have dyslexia. My kids have other things, and I have other things, and I'm sure you have other things. And it's just like, you know what? Everybody has something. And it's foolish to walk around looking at, you look at other people's houses, she in the book she looks across the street and she thinks the boy across the street lives in the most perfect house and his mother always has dinner on the table and she can see through the window in the living room that they're always there with their family and she thinks everything's great. And it's not that everything is not great, it's great. But the kid also has like an executive functioning disorder and he sits with them and they help him pack up his knapsack every day. And it's not, everybody's got something,
Yeah.
and it's a huge lesson that she learns, and it's hopefully something I think that readers of the book, will understand that there's things that you can see, there's kids in a wheelchair, there's things, you can see those, but something like dyslexia, you
Yeah.
can't really see. It can be invisible and you can hide it, and kids compensate for it by being good at other things and whatever. But it's just having the compassion to understand that everybody's walking around with
Yeah.
cards, and you have to play your best one, but it's there's all sorts of things going on, and
I love
it's
that.
just really important to remember that, I think.
I
So
agree. No, I agree. I think we have a quote for S.J. Childs that a little bit of knowledge turns fear into understanding. And books do that for children.
right.
They can start to understand their peers. They can realize just what you're saying and have a little bit more compassion. And I hope that this book's getting into middle schools and high schools and
I
things.
really
It
hope it is too.
sounds fantastic. And
Thank you.
there's any way I, hear of any ways to help push that along, I'll certainly be in touch. And
I would appreciate it. It's very hard.
yeah,
It came out during COVID. It came out in 2021 and it was just impossible. You couldn't get into the schools, you couldn't get into the libraries,
yeah.
it was very, very
Ugh,
difficult. But
so hard. Well, hopefully these types of things, podcasts and getting the word out and everything will definitely help, push that along. And how can we find out more about your books, more about your other writings and upcoming things that are going on for you?
thanks so much. I have a website. It's I can give it to you. It's just reynamartyrgentin.com. And everything is on there. Short stories and stuff about the books. And yeah, pretty much everything is on
It's a
there.
nice
So
website. I was there.
thank you.
Go and visit it. It's
Thank
lovely.
you.
I love the book covers.
Thank
It
you.
drew me to them, made me want to learn more about what was going on. I love that about books and how they can kind of, grab your interest that way.
Yeah.
And so really great job. And well, I wish you the best of luck in
Thank you so much.
your future endeavors in that. And I definitely would love to stay in touch. And, when the next book comes out, reach out. We'll have you back on to talk about it. And yeah, that'd be
Thank
fantastic.
you. Thanks. I so appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And yeah, I really look forward to staying in touch.